What's up, everyone? So for this video, I wanted to give you my opinion as a trumpet player on Chadwick Boseman's performance in the new Netflix movie, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So if you're enjoying the type of content that I'm making, please go ahead and subscribe and hit like to my channel. I would really appreciate it. Now, before I get started, I do want to say rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, who passed away August 28th, 2020. He was an incredible actor who had an incredible trajectory and did so many great things in the short time that he was here on Earth. If you don't know about Chadwick Boseman, he was an incredible, talented actor. He played many legendary roles, ranging from Jackie Robinson all the way to the Black Panther. So I really just want to pay my respects to Chadwick Boseman and make it clear that I have the utmost respect for him, and just rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. Now, the trumpet community has been very fortunate to have so many great movies, either involving a trumpet player's life or a movie that's actually about a trumpet player. Some of these include, for example, last year, the Miles Davis movie. And even as I was young, I remember the movie about Red Nichols' life called The Five Pennies, which had Louis Armstrong in it. There's the Arturo Sandoval movie where Andy Garcia played the role of Arturo Sandoval. We also have documentaries such as the Clifford Brown documentary. I just recently saw the Doc Severinsen documentary, Doc's Doc, and so on and so on. There's just too many to remember. Oh, and of course, I have to mention Denzel Washington's legendary performance in Mo Better Blues as Bleak. We just been so fortunate to have so many great movies about trumpet players, and it's really hard to kind of rank them and criticize them because ultimately seeing a trumpet player or a make pretend trumpeter being portrayed on a film is always a win for the trumpet community. So I also want to make sure that I mention that. So this movie, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, is obviously about the legendary blues musician Ma Rainey, who was a pioneer in the genre. If you didn't know about Ma Rainey, you should look her up. She's just tremendous. Some details about this movie is that it was scored by Branford Marsalis, who's a legendary saxophone player and also the brother of Wynton Marsalis. What I appreciate is that they reached out to Branford, and Branford is not only a great jazz saxophone player, but he's from New Orleans and he's very familiar with this early jazz, early blues type of repertoire. And it made a difference in the movie. Like the music and the film score sounded very authentic to the era, which I appreciated. Now, in regards to trumpet specifics, they used a gentleman called Wendell Brun. His name is Wendell Brunias, and Wendell Brunias was the cornetist for this movie. I don't know much about Wendell Brunias, but he does have a Wikipedia, and the Wikipedia says that he's from New Orleans. So I'm sure he's an established musician. And just from listening to the film score and listening to his playing throughout the movie, he sounds like he's a fantastic trumpet player who really made an effort to try to sound authentic to the era. Now, as far as visuals, I appreciate that they use a cornet throughout the movie and not a trumpet, because cornet would have been the instrument of choice during that time period. Trumpet didn't really become popularized until later when, of course, Louis Armstrong made it more popular. So the entire premise of the movie, it's about this cornetist who plays for Ma Rainey. His name is Levee, and Levee has high hopes and dreams and aspirations of becoming, a great kind of band leader and cornet band leader. So obviously this premise makes sense because during that time period, hot jazz was becoming the music of the day, and band leaders like King Oliver and Buddy Bolden were the leading figures during that time, which, by the way, they mentioned in the movie, and I really appreciate it because you don't really hear much about them. You hear a lot about Louis Armstrong, but not so much about Buddy Bolden and King Oliver. So Viola Davis plays the role of Ma Rainey, and you can expect that in a movie where you have Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman, two complete powerhouses in the acting world, you're going to get really great acting. So if you're going into this expecting for it to just be about the trumpet playing or the cornet playing, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it's not that's not it. That's just kind of like a small part in the movie. In reality, the movie touches on a lot of different subjects, dealing from racism and just the music industry back in those days, and the things that obviously an African American musician would have had to overcome during that time period. So the cornet playing is a very minuscule portion, and in the overall picture, it's of the whole movie, it's actually kind of not that important. So with keeping in mind that this movie isn't just about the cornet playing, and it's kind of just trying to set the stage for a bigger message, um, I have to say that as a trumpet player, I was a tiny little bit disappointed with Chadwick Boseman's performance with the actual cornet. I mean, like, there were just scenes where he had this ridiculous armature. He was barely like pressing, pressing the valves, and it obviously looked super awkward and super fake. So even though Chadwick Boseman's handling of the actual cornet wasn't that great, I have to say that his development of the character Levee. Now, I don't know if Levee was an actual person. I don't think there's any historical evidence that there was a cornetist named Levee who played with Ma Rainey, but it's irrelevant. Chadwick Boseman did an incredible job at developing this character. There was a lot that happened in a short span, but Chadwick Boseman is such a great actor that he really just captured everything perfectly. I mean, the arrogance and like that stereotypical ego that trumpet players have, he was able to give us some of that, while at the same time showing some of the backstory and reasoning as to why the character is the way that he is. I mean, like, it was just a profoundly deep character, and there was moments in the movie where um, even though the script maybe wasn't that great, Chadwick Boseman's acting just completely took it to a whole nother level. So even though the cornet acting wasn't that great, just generally speaking, if you don't know anything about trumpets or cornet playing, I have to admit that there was scenes in the movie where I just absolutely had goosebumps, especially at the end. Now, to conclude, I have to say that I really love this movie. As a music historian, as a trumpet player slash cornetist, I love everything about this movie. I mean, we always hear about the Louis Armstrongs, we even hear about Bessie Smith, but a character like Ma Rainey is such a unique character because you're dealing with this era, this transition where popular music is transitioning from blues to hot jazz, and some musicians are fine with playing backup blues stuff, and other musicians have aspirations to wanting to become the next King Oliver and the next great cornetist, which was a legitimate thing. I mean, like, great cornetists were a commodity in those days. And aside from just the musical stuff, I mean, just how the movie essentially is breaking down the origins of the music industry in America, the the racism and all the things, all the obstacles that those early musicians had to deal with, the Ma Raineys of the day had to deal with. These were um, extremely complex characters with so many layers, and so were the musicians, that I just feel like the movie did a really, really good job at explaining some of that. And some of these stories are things that we don't really hear about. I mean, just generally speaking, we don't talk about Ma Rainey enough in the music world. And as like a music person, I really appreciate this movie. And as a trumpet player, it just means the world to me being a Marvel fan and a Chadwick Boseman fan. Seeing his last movie, him portraying a cornetist and telling this type of story, I mean, like, it almost brought tears to my eyes. It was absolutely profound, absolutely beautiful, and I highly recommend for you to go watch it. All right, so that's my review of this movie. Let me know what you think, and thanks for tuning in. Peace.